The dark side of friendship is often overlooked. We all grow up believing that friends are the people we can trust the most. We think that because they like us, they will always support us, have our best interests at heart, and remain loyal no matter what. But what if that belief is flawed? What if, instead of being our greatest allies, our friends could be our biggest weaknesses? And what if our enemies, those we naturally distrust, could actually be more reliable than the people we call friends? This is the harsh reality that Robert Greene unveils in the 48 Laws of Power, specifically in Law 2, Never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies. When we think of betrayal, we often picture an enemy backstabbing us. However, history and experience show that betrayal frequently comes from those closest to us. Friends know our secrets, our strengths, and, most dangerously, our weaknesses. Because they have access to our trust and emotions, they are in the best position to harm us if they choose to. One of the main reasons friendships can turn sour is envy. When people are close to us, they compare themselves to us. If we succeed, they might feel left behind. If we advance in status, they might see us as a reminder of their own failures. Even if they are happy for us on the surface, deep down, they may resent us. That resentment can slowly turn into jealousy, which eventually transforms into betrayal. Another reason why trusting friends too much is dangerous is that they feel entitled. Unlike a subordinate, who must work for their position, or an ally, who must prove their loyalty, a friend assumes their relationship with you guarantees them privileges. If you don't give them what they expect, whether it's favors, money, or power, they may feel slighted. And once they feel undervalued, they can turn against you out of disappointment or anger. A classic historical example of this law in action is the story of Michael III, the Byzantine emperor, and his close friend Basil. Michael, believing that Basil was his trusted companion, elevated him from humble origins to a position of great power. However, once Basil secured enough influence, he betrayed Michael, assassinated him, and took the throne for himself. The mistake Michael made was trusting a friend too much, someone who once admired him but ultimately wanted what he had. While it may seem counterintuitive, enemies often make better allies than friends. Unlike friends, who can betray you out of emotions like jealousy or entitlement, enemies are predictable. You already know where they stand, which means you can anticipate their actions. Moreover, because they have something to prove, they often work harder to earn your trust. One of the best historical examples of this is Abraham Lincoln's team of rivals. Instead of surrounding himself with friends who might become complacent, Lincoln appointed former political opponents to key positions in his administration. These men, once his fiercest rivals, worked harder to prove their worth because they knew they had to earn Lincoln's trust. By using his enemies wisely, Lincoln created a government that was strong, capable, and united under his leadership. Enemies also serve another important purpose: they can keep you sharp. Friends often tell you what you want to hear, but enemies challenge you. They force you to refine your strategy, improve your skills, and stay aware of potential weaknesses. If you can turn an enemy into an ally, they may become more loyal than a friend because they have already experienced the cost of being against you. A famous story illustrating this point is the relationship between Julius Caesar and Brutus. While Caesar trusted Brutus as a friend, it was Brutus who ultimately betrayed him in the infamous assassination. Had Caesar relied more on his rivals, he might have seen the betrayal coming. Instead, he trusted too much in friendship and paid the ultimate price. Understanding this law doesn't mean you should abandon all friendships or treat everyone with suspicion. Instead, it teaches that blind trust is dangerous. You must always be aware of human nature. Friends can turn into enemies, and enemies can become allies. Many people make the mistake of hiring their friends or going into business with them. This often leads to disaster because personal emotions interfere with logical decision-making. If you give a friend power, they may become resentful if they feel they are not getting enough. Instead, hire based on merit, not friendship. Avoid giving your friends too much access to your vulnerabilities, especially in professional or competitive environments. This doesn't mean you should be cold, but rather that you should maintain some level of mystery and independence. If you have rivals, consider ways to turn them into allies. A former enemy who has something to gain by working with you may be more loyal than a friend who takes your relationship for granted. Find ways to create mutually beneficial relationships with those who were once against you. Just as enemies can become friends, friends can become enemies. Stay adaptable and avoid putting all your trust in one person or group. Keep your options open so that you are never completely dependent on a single relationship. If a friend starts acting differently, becoming distant, passive-aggressive, or overly critical, it could be a sign that they are developing resentment. Pay attention to these shifts and protect yourself accordingly. Law 2 of the 48 Laws of Power teaches a lesson that can be difficult to accept: trust must always be measured, and blind loyalty is a dangerous weakness. While we often believe that friends are the safest people to rely on, history shows that they can be just as dangerous, if not more so, than our enemies. At the same time, our enemies, when used wisely, can become powerful allies because they have something to prove. The key takeaway is not to be paranoid but to be strategic. Choose your allies carefully, never assume loyalty is permanent, and always be aware of how human emotions like jealousy, entitlement, and ambition can influence relationships. By mastering this law, you can navigate power dynamics more effectively and protect yourself from the hidden dangers of trust.